Good morning. So, let's start our weekend with audit, right? So we have done till components of internal control, not entirely, but yeah, we've gone through one component of internal control, which is the important component, which was what? Control environment, right? And in there we also saw 7 elements of the control environment, which I bifurcated into 3 parts. One was with respect to organizational structure. So within organizational structure department, you can say, or within organizational structure category theme wise, there was one point which relates to what? Organizational structure only. Then second point was with respect to communication and enforcement of integrity and ethical values. Communication and enforcement of integrity and ethical values, right? And one was with respect to authority and responsibility. So I told you, with power comes great responsibility. The dialogue of Spider-Man. Just remember that there, if it, at all there is an authority which has been given to you, that definitely means that there is some level of responsibility which is also been assigned to you. Then I told you to 2 points to learn based on management of TCWG. So one was with respect to how much TCWG is participating in your overall control environment, or in your total all sort of activities. So that means that TCWG themselves is involving and setting the path for the entire employees, or setting the path for the entire organization. Similarly, management, what is the philosophy of the management and how is their operating style? What is their operating style? So is it aggressive, is it conservative, what is the philosophy, are they believer in something or the other, right? And then lastly, what's with respect to employees. So one was with respect to HR policies, right? And the other was commitment to competence. So this is an important question, I would say, not yet asked, can directly give you elements of control environment. And in there, in each point there is one para. Remember that I've just summarized it in a SM. There would be much more lines given to you in study material. Now let's come to next question, which was entities risk assessment process. So in there, I told you there are 5 components of internal control, right? So 5 components are what? Control environment, risk assessment process, control activities, monitoring of control, and information system, right? So information system, I gave you homework. Do you know? Have you gone through this information system? Both the questions I told you to go through and quickly mark the difference as well. Have you gone through or not? Yes. Bolo bolo. Are yes or no? Are you able to hear me or not?
सर सभी पॉइंट्स अलग अलग रहते हैं।
सभी पॉइंट्स अलग थे। हैव यू गॉन थ्रू कम
हाँ
टू
सर। सर ये कौन से पेज नंबर में?
ऐसे 402 इस पेज नंबर 50. So for those who have joined, again I'll tell you, last class last class homework, which you might not have done, or might not, surely you have not done it. So last class homework was information system, both answer. One was methods and records, and one was procedure and records. Go through both these questions right now, abhi plus essay 402 Duraphone question, plus chapter 2 last third question, online business wala. Go through answers of all these 4 questions right now and mark the same points which you might be seeing in 3 of the questions, just that the answer for these 2 questions will be different. quickly go through them. This you will find essay 402 in page 50. Chapter 2 you can find yourself. We have done this, and this information system was where we left in the last class. Go through now, mention the points which are common or different points in other place as well. Give the reference. Give reference to other place as well. Other answers. Yes. Could you mark the common points, or are you facing any difficulty? Again, I am repeating. Procedures and records ऐसे 402 वाला जो क्वेश्चन ड्यूराफोन लिमिटेड एंड चैप्टर 2 लास्ट थर्ड क्वेश्चन, these are almost same. The difference is between methods and records and procedures and record, which sound same. The question will sound same to you if you read the line just above the answer na, for both it will sound same to you. Just the difference is where they are asking here their methods and records, and here they are asking the procedures and records in the information system areas to be examined. Everyone clear? Everyone? Or is there still any doubt? If you still want more time, you can go through that. Go through the answer once again. Bolo bolo. Shall we go now? We have not even started for today's class. We are doing homework only till now. Entities risk assessment process. So risk assessment process is what we have already done, right? This is an important component of internal control as well. The control is established or implemented to identify the risk, right? And then after identification of the risk, we have also have to do what? Assess the identified risk, whether is it material risk or not. So entities risk assessment process includes how management identifies those business risks. What do you mean by business risk? Inherent risk, right? Inherent risk without considering any internal control. What all risks are already there because of business model, because of management's integrity, or any other sort of regulatory environment or environment within which entity operates, right? So because of that, what all business risks do you think there are, inherent risks there are, without considering any controls? And relevant to it is also relevant to the preparation of FS. Estimate their significance. Now after identification, you have to assess how significant, how important is that risk to you, and assess whether that risk could actually happen, likelihood of their occurrence, and decides upon the action. How are you going to respond to mitigate the risk? How are you going to respond to mitigate the risk, to reduce the risk to an acceptable low level, or either to eliminate the risk? So that is your entire risk assessment process. That is what we also saw in SA 315. Do you remember? That is what we saw. Identify the risk and consider the risk throughout the understanding of the operating environment. Similarly, then we have to assess the risk whether it could relate to the financial statement as a whole. If not, then we have to see that assess the whether the financial, if not financial statement, then as to what can go wrong at the assertion level. What can go wrong at the assertion level? And then lastly, consider the likelihood of misstatement, including multiple misstatement. Are you remembering, recollecting what I am repeating right now? Are you recollecting this answer? Risk assessment process. Consider the risk throughout the understanding of the entity and its environment. Throughout, whenever you are understanding the entity and its environment, you have to consider the risk everywhere. Your mind should be alert. It should ring bells to you whenever you come across certain risk, right? And then after considering the same, then you have to assess whether it relates to the financial statement as a whole level. If not, then you have to consider whether as to what can go wrong at the assertion level. And lastly what? Consider the likelihood of misstatement, including possibility of multiple misstatement. Similarly, here also we are doing what? Risk assessment process. Now the questions which generally come. This has been asked two times recently. One was, I remember, in November 19, And the second time it was asked in, I think, Jan 21 or July 21, somewhere. So two times this has been asked recently, which is what they ask you. Risk can arise or change due to circumstances such as following. That means they will simply ask, in under what circumstances risk can arise. That means a new risk can arise, or already which the risk was there, there could be a change in the risk. Change in the risk. So risk can arise or change due to circumstances such as following. So it could be because of growth, right? So I'll give you an example. I'm covering for now. I'm covering Federal Bank in my office. So Federal Bank, you'll see the assets have grown tremendously. So from 280 million, it has gone to 390 around million of advances they have lent. Sorry, not Federal, but its subsidiary, which is called FedFina, which is Fed Bank Financial Services Limited. It is an NBFC, which is more into gold loan financing. So their assets have increased substantially. Similarly, their return on equity, return on asset has also been increased substantially. And it is because, mostly because of increase in assets. And I'll tell you about Federal Bank. They are trying, they are considered to be a safe bank, because generally they lend to those who are giving security, that means secured asset. So if you see for Federal Bank, the peers are suppose RBL Bank and IDFC First Bank. I don't know if you have heard about these two IDFC, but generally you will find that RBL and IDFC, the composition of their loan book is generally what? Risky asset. Risky asset is in sense personal loans with no guarantee, right? Personal loans. IDFC purely into credit cards, personal loans. And RBL also, the composition is not like retail to wholesale. The ratio is not 45-55, which is the case with a Federal Bank. So that is considered to be a safe ratio. And also in the retail portion, 81% of their suppose the retail assets. Retail means what? Housing loan, loan against property, auto loan, personal loan, credit loan. So personal and credit loans are unsecured, but housing loan, these are all what? Secured. Whenever you give housing loan, you'll get security as a home. The home will be kept with you as a security, right? Similarly, loan against property, loan against FD, auto loans. So all these are secured loans. So Federal Bank, the composition is more into secured loans. However, they are trying to grow into the select business segments. Select business segments are this: credit card, personal loans. They are trying to grow into those areas as well, so that they can increase their margin. If you see margin it is having 3.3% for Federal. However, for IDFC it is 6% margin. Why? Because the interest in credit card, personal loan is huge, right? The fees that they charge is huge. So, but again, the risk of default is also more. So risk of default, if you'll see here, is 19 basis point only for Federal Bank. However, for IDFC, it is 1.3%. That means 130 basis point. So these are all the difference that you can see. What I'm trying to tell you is that whenever you go for growth in certain want to expand, or any new business model for like Federal Bank, and similarly for restructuring on any new technology, Federal Bank is also assessing their partnership with fintech companies like One Card. You must have heard of One Card, right? Fi, Jupiter. These are all tied up with Federal Bank only. They are issuing the account, they are opening up with the new accounts, and they are issuing the credit cards, everything with the help of Federal Bank only, infrastructure of the Federal Bank, and with the technology of this Fi, Jupiter, and one company. If you have heard of this ad, many a times you will come across the ads for this Fi, Jupiter, and One Card. So the new technology that you will go through, changes in the operating environment. So what I wanted you to tell was, the risk can arise, right? There could be a risk that Federal Bank, till now, till 1971, it has been established. For sorry, 1971, 91 years of establishment has been there, and till now they were operating in an environment where they were safe, secured assets mostly. Now they are entering into new domain. So new business model, rapid growth. They want rapid growth in their margins, in their asset. They want to expand their foreign operations as well. New business models, products, corporate restructuring, new technology, changes in the operating environment will happen definitely. New personnel, new or revamped information system. So new personnel could be because of mergers and acquisition, because of corporate restructuring, right? So like I would give you an example. Citibank is acquired Citibank is acquired by Axis Bank now. So Citibank has no more retail operations in India. They were doing retail operations in India, but they found really hard to do retail operations in India, like the other MNC banks as well, like JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, all the banks that you'll see here in India. Their presence is mostly in wholesale. Wholesale means what? Corporate accounts they will have, but not retail accounts like us. So they were having till now. Recently, 2 months back, they have sold this to Axis Bank. So Axis Bank has taken over the Citibank operations and every building infrastructure, everything A to Z. And because of that, there would be a new personnel employed, right? New or revamped information system. Now the Axis Bank information system will be implemented there. Similarly, new accounting pronouncement will can also see that there could be a change in risk, or there could be a new risk which can arise because of any new accounting pronouncement that may come. Similar what I was telling you, like stage 3 asset. Do you remember stage 1, stage 2, stage 3? Staging wise asset classification will be implemented next year onwards. That means banks will be implemented with Indian accounting standard, Indias. Till now they are preparing financials as per AS only. Now they are preparing financials as per AS only. But later in the from next year onward, RBI is planning to shift the banks as well to Indian accounting standard, Indias. They have shifted already. NBFCs have already been shifted to Indian accounting standards. So this could also be a change in risk, or a new risk can arise. So getting this, we need to learn all these points. These are more or less you can go with the flow. So you wanted rapid growth, so you thought of going into foreign. You wanted rapid growth, so you thought of going into foreign. There is stagnant market in India, so you thought that okay, let's go to foreign and grow, rapidly grow. And then there you started with new business model, new products, new activities. So in the foreign you started selling golgappas, and therefore you needed corporate restructuring as well. So because of that restructuring, mergers and amalgamation, or any sort of restructuring, because of that there would be a new technology in your entity. And also once you are restructured with the other entity, foreign entity, so the foreign laws will also apply. There would be operating environment change. There would be change in operating environment because you were there in India. Now you have gone to US or any other foreign location, or any new personnel will also be there. Similarly, revamped information system, what I told you, because of new system, because of changing operating environment, new country, new foreign operation, rapid growth, change in information system will be there. And also now, earlier you were applied with what? AS Index. Now once you have gone to foreign, you will be applied with what? IFRS, right? IFRS or US GAAP. So you can just go with the flow, with the flow. Rapid growth you wanted, so you went to foreign operations for rapidly growing, and then you started with something new, new business model, new business products or activities. And because of that you needed corporate restructuring, mergers, amalgamation, and for that there happened to got a new technology in your entity. Operating environment also got to change, and then new employees came to us, new employee, new personnel became part of the organization, and information system got renewed entirely, revamped, right? And accounting pronouncements were applied, new accounting pronouncements were applied, right? Everyone getting it? It's an important question, they have asked it twice. Any doubt? Come to control activities now. Control activity is another component of internal control only. So till now we have gone through three components, right? One was control environment, second one was information system, and the third one we just did what? RAP, risk assessment process. Now control activities. So I've given you an example of P2B, right? So purchase requisition will be prepared, then PO will be made, PO, then the quotation will be done, quotation, then there would be controls in the quotations. Then after the PO, the supplier will send you the goods. So good receipt note, then quality check, then accounts payable department, and then cash, and then again the cycle follows, right? So in each and every phase of this entire activity, I can say this is what a P2P activity. This is what a P2P activity. In this entire activity, there will be controls implemented, right? Yes or no? There will be controls implemented. Like I told you, PO should tally with PR the amount and the quantity that suppose they are giving you the order for, you are giving order for 5.8 tons, so that should also match with purchase requisition. They are also requiring the same amount. Are you increasing the in the order as compared to the requisition? It should not happen. If you are increasing, then you should need to get approval, you need to get approval of the PO authority. or if there at all is any deviation versus PR or NPO, it should not exceed 2% of the total quantity. These are all what controls in the PO. After PO purchase order, yeah, you'll before that ask for 3 quotations. So quotations you will get. So minimum 3 quotations you should act upon the quotations only when you have received minimum 3 quotations, and that too are in the lowest quotation. If you are if you are purchasing at a quotation higher than the lowest price, then you should have reason. These are all what controls. Similarly, there will be controls that whether all these control activities, that means what, in the entire activity whatever controls are there, these are also control activities. So are they properly implemented? We will review the same. So performance wise we will review, performance review will be happening of the actual performance versus budgets and forecast, of the actual performance versus budgets and forecast. So this has to be done performance review, so as to check whether the proper implementation of the controls are happening or not within the entire activity of the P2P only. There are so many other activities: P2P, OTC, order to cash, that is with respect to sales, then fixed asset, direct tax, indirect tax, FSCP, financial statement closing process. So there are many activities, and in each activity there has to be so many of the controls so that it ensures smoothing of the activities. So the second one is with respect to information processing. So information processing, there has to be so many controls with respect to application control, and it can also lead to general IT control. There are generally 2 types of control which we'll study in chapter 4. Which we'll study in chapter 4. Just remember, whatever we study there, you have to reciprocate here also. Examples of the IT control and examples of the general IT control. You'll also have to write the examples here. We'll study there because they are asked separately for 4 to 5 marks, 2 3 times. Example of general IT control, example of your normal controls, that is application control. So generally you will find, I'll tell you the difference later also, but to give you a glimpse between the difference upon application controls and general IT control is, application control directly relates to any application or any activity within the entity. However, general IT controls are more or less relating to the entire entity as a whole. That could be example I could give you is the controls with respect to servers, that means server organization, who can access, who can be the super user, who can make the changes, or these are all these now, these are at entity level, right? Because any change in the server will impact all everyone, right? Everyone will be impacted before if there is any hamper or changes in server. So any sort of controls which deals with the entire entities, for example here in the case of us example, it's the server. Any control which relates to the server will be general IT control. However, application control will be application with controls with respect to suppose P2P activities. There are so many applications within the activity. So those are application controls. Now there will be also physical controls to check whether the goods receipt note, this quality check, these are all what? These are all physical controls. You are checking now whether the goods we have received is at par of the quality or not. All the physical control, security, safeguarding, these are all what? Security control, or sorry, physical control. And lastly, there has to have a say SOD, segregation of duty. So this I have learned this through RIP sword, RIP sword, but you can make something of your own as well. Just go through this and try to learn as well both the answer, information system and control activities. Try and go through both the answers. And then lastly, we had monitoring of control. Give it a reading as well. Give the reading to last control component, monitoring of control. Then we'll start with internal check. Any doubt, straight away, right away, speak out. Yes, everyone went through both the answer. Easy to remember as well. See, I know chapter 3 is very sort of tedious and a bit complex, you can say. I know that most of the students feel very lethargic to revise chapter 3 later on. So I'm telling you to read here. If I'm telling you, so you have to pay attention and try to also grasp the same along with the class. So that's the liberty you are getting to revise, understand everything at all in the class itself. If any question, straight away ask. If you're not getting any point, once you get the point, once you get the logic, why it is written in here, why it is that in the control activity, these 4 points are there in the control activity. Why? This should come. Once the point you understand, you read, but the question comes here is why these points are given under here, that should come. Then only you will be able to retain properly. I tried to understand you control activities, right? So if these are all your control activity, SOD will be there in your entire P2P. Similarly, there would be physical controls like quality check, good receipt note, goods will be checked. In fact, after that as well, the goods will be checked in the inventories once they form part of inventory. Information processing, all this entire cycle has to be there. What proper application control, general IT controls has to be there. Automated controls. Apart from automated control, there can also be information processing, other controls. And then lastly, with respect to what performance review, during each and every phase of this control activities, you'll tend to check whether PO order was properly approved by the senior authority or not, whether PR authority checked that at the time of requisition whether there was already material lying in our inventory. All this control deficiency should not happen. That is, performance review will occur timely on a regular basis. Are you getting now? This should be your approach, that you should be able to assess why these points are given under this answer. Yes, shall I move forward now or shall I wait? Chalo, internal check. Check, internal check. Internal check. Internal check. That means what? Somebody checking upon you, like your mother does, right? Checking upon you whether you have eaten or not, you ate the food, then after that, are you studying or not? If you are studying a lot, then you shall check again whether you have got proper sleep or not, right? So check on day to day operations, your day-to-day operations, the check on their entire day-to-day operation, transactions, and operating continuously. That means what? Internal check has to be operating continuously, just like your mother. Continuously she comes. So it means checks on day-to-day transaction which operates continuously as a part of routine system whereby work of each person is either proved independently. Now here that lies the main point, the crux, that each and every person has to be checked upon by other person's work. I mean, each and every person's work has to be checked upon by other person. So whereby work of each person is either proved independently or is made complementary to the work of another. Or you can say what, if I am making the GST return, then you will be checking the GST return and then filing it. So thereby making it complementary. Or you can say that I'll be filing with GSTR 3B and you are be preparing with GSTR 1 and 2B. So whatever be the sort of, you can say, their work can be complementarily made such that my work is checked by you and your work will be checked by me. The process is designed like that, and that could help us to prevent or detect any error and fraud. Are you getting the internal check? It's a check on day-to-day transaction which operates continuously. All the transaction which operates continuously. So the check on those transactions as a part of routine system whereby work of your work will be either be independently proved or will be complementarily made to available to other persons, such that the, the errors and frauds are prevented and detected. The errors and frauds are prevented and detected. I hope everyone got the definition at least. Yeah. So see, here are my objectives of internal check. Check, internal check. So what are the objectives? My objective is to prevent or avoid any sort of chori chamari, any sort of misappropriation, any sort of embezzlement of cash or any other thing, whatever be it. But the main objective is to prevent and avoid this misappropriation and thereby detecting the frauds and error. Also, you need to decrease the fraud amount by staff, that is staff fraud. You want to reduce the fraud committed by staff to be the lowest, then definitely you should have an internal check, right? If suppose then Lakshmi mothers already know that she is a very notorious child, then That is what she wants to say, that any sort of staff fraud or error that she is bound to make, then definitely internal check is there as an objective. We also have an objective of check on the staff fraud done by the staff, increase efficiency of staff. If you will have check upon them, don't you think Dhanlakshmi will start learning more and more, studying more and more, if her mother is checking upon her daily, routinely in 2 hours? So your increase efficiency will increase, and responsibility area will also be located, or you can say where actual fraud or error has occurred generally. Then Lakshmi will tend to now realize, she'll get the realization that okay, since now she was not studying, but let's start now. Now is never, or never is never, right? So locate responsibility area or stages where actual fraud and error occurs, and also to protect the integrity of business by ensuring that accounts are always subject to proper scrutiny and check. So these are all my objectives. You can just try to learn if you want to learn. What I have done is misappropriation and cash embezzlement का expert हूँ मैं. I am the expert of misappropriation and embezzlement, cash embezzlement. So I got the information that errors and frauds are going to happen. I got the information that errors and frauds are going to happen, and I am the expert of misappropriation and embezzlement of cash, right? So I got the information that errors and fraud होने वाला है, and so efficient staff. I went with efficient staff and went straight away to responsibility area. That is where the error and fraud actually happened. Responsibility area where the fraud and error actually happened, but error and fraud so already happened na. So already happened, what will I do now after visiting there? So I'll be just protecting the integrity of the business with proper scrutiny. So you'll tend to realize that almost all of the points sequentially I have been covered. Misappropriation of cash and cash embezzlement, first point, right? Then information. कहा गया? One point was there na, information. Anyway, error and fraud say you have which points? Error and fraud say to detect and to minimize, right? So error and fraud, you can just mark the 2 points. One is to prevent, detect, and correct normal error and fraud, and one is with respect to staff error and fraud, right? So staff error we have to reduce. Efficient staff. So my efficiency will increase, right? And responsibility area, that means what? I'll become more responsible. Responsibility area or stages where actual fraud error actually happen, I'll be able to locate those responsible area, or and lastly to protect the integrity of business, proper scrutiny and check. So that was the last point. I hope everyone's clear with objective. Just go through it once again if you want. But we are going to do the entire chapter 3 here only in the class. I want everyone to pay attention, do the entire chapter in the class, just left with the revision then. Because I know this chapter you will face difficulty later on if you don't revise immediately. And I know that I can't now afford to give you any homework because you are not doing it. Instead, we can have more sessions, no problem with me. But giving homework to you is of no use. Let me know once you are done with the objectives. Yes, done everyone. Now straight away come to skip that question effectiveness wala and come to review of internal control system. Review of, sorry, not internal control, it is internal check system. Internal check system. So they will ask you simply in the question. Many a times it has been asked. This is important question. Please pay attention, everyone. This is the question that they'll ask is general conditions pertaining to internal check system may be summarized. That means these all conditions should be there in your internal check. General conditions pertaining to internal check system may be summarized. So everyone have to follow my rhythm or follow my theme. What I am trying to do. So First 3 points we are going to learn with our one finger. So first point is no single person shall handle the transaction from start to end. No single person shall handle the transaction from start to end. That means what? If you are starting with certain information, you should not be continuing the entire transaction. Instead, there should be between sort of, you can say, SOD, segregation of duties, or your work should be made complementary to the work of other person, so that he will also have a check on your work. You will also tend to check upon your work, because you know that your work is an input for another person's work. Suppose whatever output I am coming out with, that is already an input for another person's, then definitely you will be more conscious, more efficient, and try not to make any mistake. So that is what they are saying: no single person shall handle the transaction from start to end. No single person shall handle the transaction from start to end. Employees should be rotated from time to time without giving any previous notice. That means you must have visited bank, right? So there you will see that whenever you go to cash and counter, generally in 3-4 months time the person will change. But it is not like the person leaves the branch. Person in fact is there in the branch only, but he must be sitting somewhere else in other department. Because cashier, you will see that cashier generally tends to change, rotated. That is what they are showing. Staff should be rotated from time to time without giving any previous notice. They should not be even notified. Staff should be rotated staff should be rotated from time to time without giving any previous notice. And then you should be encouraged to go on leave at least once in a year. Employees should be encouraged to go on leave at least once in a year. So are you getting it? I used my first finger to recall all the points. The first one was no single person shall handle the transaction from start to end. Rotation of duty from time to time without giving any previous notice. Employees should be encouraged to go on leave at least once in a year. So that what will happen? So that once you are on leave, you will not be able to check upon your work. You will not be able to interfere or manually interfere. Instead, some other persons might be delegated the work of yours, and they might, with any new mentality or any sort of freshness, come out with any sort of fraud or error that you might have committed. So therefore you will be already in a conscious mood, prevent to commit any fraud or error. You'll tend to realize that okay, I'll be having to go on a leave for suppose 15 days. Then during that period, what if any other person catches my fraud or error? So you'll tend to have a consciousness, and that is what they are trying to say: internal check system. So no single person shall handle the transaction from start to end. Employees should be rotated from time to time without giving any previous notice, and employees should be encouraged to go on leave at least once in a year. Then definitely there also come SOD. Physical custody of asset must not have access to the books of account. That is what? Segregation of duty. Yes or no, everyone? Then accounting control should also exist for each class of asset and periodical inspection so as to establish their physical condition. So periodical inspection, I can say physical inventory checking plus periodical inspection, right? This is one point. The other one was SOD. So first 3 points, just remember, first 3 point was with respect to our finger. Then SOD and physical inventory checking. And there should be mechanical devices, such as, for example, you can say automated cash register, like you would witness in many of the malls or any sort of international brand showrooms and all. So mechanical devices, just an example I'm giving you, is automated cash register. That is what is do is to prevent or detect any sort of loss or misappropriation in cash. So you don't have to be then extra curious, extra careful as to checking of the notes and everything. So automated cash register could be a mechanical device which will help you to reduce your misappropriation of cash. Then budgetary control, inventory taking. So budgeting, you'll have to do the budgeting and also inventory taking. So just go through all the points once again. No single person shall handle the transaction from start to end. Employee should be rotated to go on leave at least once in a year. No, not sorry, once in a year, but it should be rotated from time to time without giving any previous notice. That is what is more important. They should not be notified that they will be removed or rotated without giving any previous notice. And the third one is with respect to what? Employees should be encouraged to go on leave at least once in a year. And then periodical inspection, physical verification happened. Budgeting, inventory taking, inventory monitoring, controls. These are all what? Your general conditions pertaining to internal check system. Now come just above that, there is one more answer consideration for effective check, internal check. So effectiveness of efficient system of internal check depends upon following operations. You can go through this 4 point, you will find it that it is more or less same of what we just now read. Just go through this. Come to this question then. RTP November 19 question. Yes, tell me what should be the answer. So BSF Limited is engaged in the business of trading leather goods. You are the internal auditor of the company for the year 2018-19. In order to review the internal controls, you visited the department and noticed the work division. One officer was handling the sales ledger and also the cash receipts. What do you think? Is there any deficiency here in the internal control in the first point?
Yes, there should be division of work.
Division of work has to be there. That means what? SOD has to be there, right? There was no SOD. The person who is handling the cash as well as the debtors sales ledger, then definitely is bound to do the teaming and leading or any sort of other fraud, right? The second point, another official was handling dispatch of goods and issuance of delivery challan. Is there any division that needs to be done here? What do you think? Hmm?
No, sir, not required.
Not required, right? That is more or less relating to same activity. So delivery of issuing of delivery challan and dispatch of goods. The one person who is dispatching the good, that he will only be creating the delivery challan, right? He'll be making all the challan, mentioning the vehicle number and other sort of information when whatever how much ton of goods is exporting or delivering out. So that is or more or less similar to kind of work which one person will only be doing. Similarly, the third one more officer was there to handle customer data amount and issue of receipts. Yes, here. Bolo bolo bolo. You are handling customer and debtors account, or you can say simply debtors account, and you are also issuing receipts. Hmm? Bolo.
Sir, SOD might
Should
be
be there.
applied, sir. Yes, sir.
Should
So SOD should be there. In all the cases, I think SOD should be there. Even in the second case, another officer was handling dispatch of goods and issuing of delivery challan. There should be SOD. Similarly, officer was handling the sales ledger and cash receipt, has to be an SOD. An officer who is handling customer data account and also issuing the receipts. Here, so definitely there has to be segregation of duty. So overall, you have to give this answer entire. You'll have to write these general conditions pertaining to internal check system. General conditions pertaining to this internal check system you'll have to mention, and then accordingly conclude that here in the division of work, company has not done proper division of work. The receipts of cash should not be handled by the official handling sales ledger. Delivery challan should be verified by an authorized official other than the officer handling dispatch of goods. And the officer who is handling the data accounts should not issue the receipts. That also will come. I'll again check this suggested, but yeah. ठीक है, anyways you will be mentioned, the main answer lies here is general conditions pertaining to internal check system, right? And then you will quickly conclude by saying that there was not proper division of work in the given areas mentioned above. Now come to SOPs. You must be aware about SOPs, standard operating procedures. Standard operating procedure, what do you mean by SOPs? Standard operating procedures must have gone through in your organization or somewhere else where you would have worked. Hmm? It's nothing but a way that has to be followed for smoothing of your entire work in the organization. So standard operating procedure is your procedures which has been given to you so that the operations carry out smoothly. So SOPs, they are saying that controls are likely to be clearly understood and consistently applied even during employee turnover. So example I would give you, suppose you joined some company and you will tend to find the documents that you need to go through, trainings that you need to go through, right? So in these policies, procedures, documents will be what? Policies, procedures, statements, or standards. So all these documents tells you what, that these are policies are followed by our company, and these you will have to go through so that you are accustomed to our entity and also able to go through the entire operation activities of the entity. Similarly, training will be given to you. So all this happens is what a part of SOP, standard operating procedure, because even after you leave the entity, the new employee will come again and will start with this, right? And in a way I could say that there is no um, stopping, there is no stoppage in the work. The person will come, the person will go, but they will not be like they will not be required to be trained by an individual. If there is an SOP, they could simply refer to the SOPs, operation standard operating procedures. They could simply refer to SOPs, training documents, training modules, or policies, procedures, and grab the whatever the organization is into, and accordingly suits the operating environment of the entity. So see here, enterprise risk management, that is SOP with respect to ERM. Generally you will find that okay, enterprise risk management SOP is there definitely, so that we hire employees even if the mentality of the employees is not like what we thought, or is more of into errors or fraudulent committee sort of mentality, but still he will be imbibed with the quality of value creating value to the organization, addressing to the stakeholders of the company. So sort of that, an enterprise risk management has to be there in your SOP. How you are you going to enterprise risk, the risk in the enterprise, how are you going to manage, right? So an organization which has robust process to identify and mitigate the risk across the enterprise and its periodical review will help in early detection of gaps. Similarly, SOD has to be there in your SOPs, segregation of duties, job responsibilities, then job rotation of duty from time to time without giving any previous notice. So in the SOP there should also be what, SODs and job rotation. Then if at all that work has been delegated to some other person, delegation of financial powers, then there has to be documented. That means suppose you have to obtain your manager's approval, but if your manager wants, he can delegate that approval level to some other and to some other person within your team, and he can grant you the approval, right? So delegation of financial powers, document, and information technology based controls, all these are important to be form part of your SOPs. That is what they are saying. Try here, see here. Well defined set of SOPs helps define roles, responsibility, process, controls, helps clearly communicate the operating controls to all touch points of the process. Controls are likely to be clearly understood now. So whatever controls are there in the entity, you will be able to understand, yes, because of this the control is like that, and why this process needs this control, and consistently applied even during employee turnover. I told you what, even if the employee leaves, the new employee will come, will go through the SOPs, and again will get tandem to the entity. So it's an important question. This came in December 21, I remember. So go through this also again, once again. Any doubt, let me know right now. Let me know once you are done. Yes, done or not. So what's your plan for this weekend? What are you planning? You're asking for class holiday for tomorrow. You want holiday or you are asking? No, no, not no holidays. You want holiday. For what you want, then Lakshmi? So you have entire Saturday na to complete your backlog. That is what I am saying. You have entire Saturday. Today is Saturday. Let's see. We have office too. Sagar is going for a date tomorrow. What time, Sagar? Acha, today you are going. So why do you need tomorrow? Let's see. Based on today's target and based on your efforts for today, what can we do for tomorrow? What time you are going for date, Sagar? What time are you going for date? Afternoon. So we are also going to have an afternoon session today so that we can cover for Sunday. ठीक है? So cancel the date, Sagar. Sorry for that. Yes, Sagar, quickly tell me, have you gone through in the IPCC? Do you remember how you used to evaluate internal controls? Do you remember there used to be four techniques? Four techniques to evaluate internal control. One was narrative records, checklist, control questionnaire, internal control questionnaire, and last one was flow chart,
Flow chart, sir, flow chart.
right? So similarly, here also we are going to study the same concept, just that narrative records they are not mentioned in the study mat. So why are we required even, right? So we won't be studying narrative records, but that is more or less similar to uh, the thing that there will be a detailed description of the entire process, the entire controls in the entity. So everything will be mentioned that this has to be done, then that approval has to be obtained, this, that, everything will be obtained, but in narrative form. Similarly, in the questionnaire and in the checklist form, there will be the process, procedure, controls will be mentioned. However, it is in sort of questionnaire wise or it is in the sort of checklist wise. And lastly, in the flow chart, it will be in the form of charts, right? Diagrams, or you can say graphical representation. Graphical representation of your internal controls will be there in the flow chart. And that is more or less, you could say, giving a bird's eye view. Bird's eye view. That means you are able to see the entire thing from the above at once, everything at once. But when you are reading for narrative, when you are reading internal control questionnaire checklist, you are going through one point, right? But when you are seeing the flow chart, you are able to grasp everything at once, single point of view. So let's see the questionnaire versus checklist. The main point here, the two questions which I expect, which hasn't been asked by the IC in anywhere, in RTP, MTP, they have not yet asked. The two questions which I expect is, one is certain basic assumption for elements of good internal control. When you are using ICQ, you assume some things, then only you frame the questions. So in ICQ, internal control questionnaires, you have to frame the questions, right? For us to assess how the controls are in the entity. So when you frame the questions, you have certain basic assumptions in your mind. So what all assumptions are there? That yes, definitely the controls will be there only. Controls will be good enough, and whatever all sorts of controls. Similarly, there could be another question which deals with this. What is the difference between questionnaire ICQ and what is the difference between checklist? Checklist and ICQ. Checklist and ICQ difference. So these two questions are important. Rest, just try to read and comprehend what they are trying to see. If they, even if they ask you directly for a sort of short note or any sort of answer, then also you should be able to at least describe or narrate the intro part at least. So it is a set of questions for each functional area, and consist of separate sections devoted to areas such as purchase, sales, trade receivable, trade payables, etc. So for all areas you have your questions, and that has been framed for the client, and it is intended to be filled by way. Who is going to be filling this ICQ? Are the auditors going to fill? No. Auditors will frame the question, will forward it to the client. Client is going to fill the ICQ. Everyone clear? Client is going to fill the ICQ. However, there could be some practical difficulties in the ICQ. Suppose you give to your client, do you think client will give the answers at once and give it back to you, all the feedbacks, all the inputs, all the answers? Will he give it back the ICQ all at once? No. He will then pass it forward to his manager. Manager will say, no, I am not free, I'll pass it on to other manager, Babushai, right? So question is to travel from executives and may take long time to get filled. Similarly, questionnaire can also get misplaced while traveling from one place to other. So these are some sort of practical difficulties which have generally been observed when giving the ICQ, internal control questionnaire. So when auditor is required to fill the answer, he should ensure that executives have initiated answer as a token of his agreement. That means what? Suppose no one is filling the answer, management is not filling the answer, they are not getting the time, they have not no time. Then what we will do as an auditor, we will just directly start filling up the answer based on management's point of view. Management's agreement will take him on the call, will ask them only. We will fill, just that we have to agree with the management's point of view. Whatever management says, we will kind of answer the same way. And then you have certain basic assumption for good internal control elements when you are using what? ICQ. So whenever you use ICQ, internal control questionnaire, you assume that okay, good internal controls will be there, internal controls has to be there, good only. So generally you tend to assume that whatever cash you receive during the day, you deposit it in that day only, or in regular intervals in 7 days, in every week, in every month, in every fortnight period. So whatever cash you receive has to be deposited regularly in bank account. Regular could be day, regular could be weekly, regular could be fortnightly, regular could be monthly. So but that has to be regularly. So receipts of day or daily balancing of cash book and ledger are examples of widely used practice which are considered good internal control practice. So this you will assume that yes, this is happening there. Secondly, you will assume that extensive division of duty is there. SOD. Similarly, separation of accounting and custodial function. No single person shall handle the transaction from start to end. There should always be evidence to identify person which has done the work. Similarly, work performed by each one is expected to come under review of another. So review, performance review. Do you remember performance review? Complementary, make the work of me complementary to the work of you, so that you will check my work also, thereby making me a bit more conscious towards my approach, my errors, my frauds. And lastly, there is a proper documentation and recording of the transactions. So it's an important mark. This as probable future question can be asked anyway. And the points are more or less same. Say no single person shall handle the transaction from start to end. SOD should be there. Separation of accounting function and custodial function. Extensive division of duty should be followed. That means you should not be allowed to do major tasks of an entire transaction. So suppose if the transaction is there, so you should not be doing half of the transaction. Instead, you could divide this into further parts and do few parts only, one or two. So extensive division of duties, like what we see in generally in large corporates, large MNCs. So now come to ICQ. Now come to checklist. So as against ICQ, the checklist is filled by the auditor only. So as against ICQ, the checklist is filled by auditor. The first point of difference. So auditor initials the space opposite the instruction, right? So whatever instructions are there, whatever there, he will initial his space. I mean, he will sign. Initials means signing the space opposite the instruction. If it is in the form of question answer, then you will write yes, no, or not applicable. And checklist is in the nature of reminder to the auditor about matters to be checked for testing of the internal control system. So once you start checking, ticking yes, no, not applicable, everything, so you'll tend to realize, okay, this control is not there, this control is there, but let me check, this is an important control. So you'll tend to realize that, okay, your procedure for nature, timing, and extent of entity, or nature, timing, and extent of test of control definitely tend to follow because of this checklist. So let's see what is the difference. So ICQ, you will see that it generally incorporates large number of detailed question. However, checklist contains question relating to main controls only. That is important objective, important areas, important controls. Those are only covered in the checklist. Because here auditor has to work now. How much work he will do? He already has to start with the audit. So no much in detail you can find in checklist. However, in questionnaire the detailing is there. All sort of detailing, question, answer, everything is there. Similarly, weaknesses are highlighted by yes. In the ICQ, weaknesses are highlighted by yes, but here weaknesses indicated by no. That means what? If you want to ask in the ICQ that whether there is segregation of duties, so where do you think the question will come? According to second point, this second point, where do you think this question will come? Whether there is segregation of duty in following task. Where do you think this question, proper framing of the question according to this only, where do you think it will come? In ICQ or checklist? In checklist, right? Because if at all they say no to this question, then that will reflect weakness, right? Reflect weakness of the entity. However, they now change. Now this is exactly as per ICI study mat only, right? But now they have changed that no in the ICQ indicate weakness, but significance of that weakness is not revealed automatically. That means what? In the checklist, suppose if you are mentioning that whether there is a SOD, and if you say, if you will also write that if not specify any alternative mitigating controls, or specify any other justification for not having the SOD, or any other sort of reasons has to be mentioned. That is what here specifying statement is required, where apparent weakness may prove to be material. So wherever you find that this material, if the answer to the above question is no, then I know this answer to this should have been yes. If no, then I want that, because this is a material weakness, I want the reason justification for the same. Are you getting this? Just remember that they have changed in the third point. But according to me, the second point is more or less proper. So see here, I have also done this for you to remember. Do you know which movie? Hmm?
खिलाड़ी सर.
खिलाड़ी. से बॉबी देओल भी था उसमें. Not हाउसफुल. अरे, in that Bobby Deol was also there na, and then they were in London, and then they asked the la the password was changed by Akshay Kumar's. Everything is possible. The password was Everything was possible. What was the movie name? Om Shanti Om. अजनबी था शायद, हाँ. यस यस, अजनबी. Hmm. So you can watch Ajnabi today as an homework. Let's come to flowchart. Flowchart is a graphical representation, as I told you, concise way, precisely, comprehensively showing you the entire controls within the entity, right? So it's giving you bird's eye view. I told you, right? So you can just draw here a bird as well. So giving you a bird's eye view. So it is mostly consisting of what? Diagrams full with lines and symbols. So you must have done this in IPCC, in ITSM, right? So start used to happen with oval shaped, na? Start, and then when a parallelogram will come, and then a rectangle will come, and it has to be end with oval, then only, I think, oval shape or circle shape. So yes, no, you can ask this two question. So it has generally full with lines and symbols. Now this you already know. Essay 265. Please go through this fast. I've told you this will also again come in chapter 3, essay 265. This you have already known. Letter of weakness, letter of weakness. Just mark this C and D point as important. If they ask you importance of letter of weakness or important points with regard to such letter or letter of weakness, then these 2 points you already know. Just mark point number C and point number D also. New. Only these 2 points are new. Rest you have already done. Go through it fatafat. Fatafat. So that is what we studied in there also, na 265. That in letter of weakness or in whenever you communicate the weaknesses you find in the internal controls, you communicate the same to the management, but stating that our objective was not to check upon the internal controls or to give an opinion on the operating effectiveness of the internal controls. We are not here to check upon the adequacy of internal controls. We just are here to perform the audit and to express opinion on the financial statement. But to do so, to perform further audit procedures, we have to do what? Check also the internal controls. And from there, whatever deficiency we found out, we are just communicating the same. It is not a duty to check the internal controls, or it's not like we are giving an opinion on the adequacy of internal control. That is, you are clarifying that there could be certain more misstatements or more deficiencies that you may even find further if you check more internal controls. We checked according to our procedures.
Okay, sir. It means we will only suggest in the case we came across such deficiencies, ना?
Yeah,
मतलब
yeah,
प्राइमरी ऑब्जेक्टिव हमारा नहीं रहेगा.
yes.
ओके सर.
Yes, are you recalling the same points we studied in essay 265? Everyone able to recall or not? ठीक है? Now let's come to few frameworks of internal control. So everyone is saying what? Internal control, internal control, internal controls. Now how to implement in the as an internal control? How to implement in the entity? Suppose you are starting up with a huge big business. You need to have internal control, right? So now where to resort for your internal controls? So there are certain frameworks which are already established frameworks which you can adopt, which you can also adopt, or it's a generally tend to be considered as a good practice if you are able to adopt to that framework. The first framework which is been told by COSO framework, COSO, Committee of Sponsoring Organization of the Tradeway Commission. So Committee of Sponsoring Organization, COSO, this was built long back when there happened to be a few frauds outside in Switzerland around. They have created this commission committee for sponsoring organization, and COSO has came out with 21 points of principles as far as I remember. And now recently in 2017 they have reframed it, 2017 or 2010 I don't remember, but they've reframed it and came out with 17 principles inside the five components. And what all five components? You can see same control environment, control activity, risk assessment, information communication, monitoring. Same five components of internal control. They have divided their fundamental concepts into these five components. So you can see in StudyMate they have written 20, but I know that they have reduced it into 17 basic principles. So in StudyMate they have written 20, but they have reduced it into 17 principles. You can also mention 17 if you can count there. See here 17 only, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17. ठीक है? So 17 principles are there divided amongst five basic components of this COSO framework, and five components are more or less same. You can go through the entire point, all the points. If they at all want to dig in, then they can dig in. If they want to dig in like anything, yes, they can ask you in which component does this principle belongs to. They can ask you vice versa also in as an MCQ. They can ask you demonstrates commitment to competence belongs to which component of IC, internal control, under COSO. So this already we have learned, right? Control environment we have already learned. Control activity selects and develop control activity, general controls over technology and policies and procedures. Now communicates internally, communicates externally. This will belong to where? Information and communication. Information and communication. Now this question they have asked in Gen 21. Objectives. Framework lists three categories of objectives. So three category of objective is CRO, one is compliance objective, other is reporting objective, and O is operations objective. Compliance objective, reporting objectives, operations objective. So this was asked for 4 marks. So objective of COSO principle is that they should be able to implement the internal controls such that all their compliance activities are properly followed, all their reporting activities are followed, and their entire objectives with respect to operations of the entity should be such that the operations are being carried out smoothly, and the objective with respect to operations, reporting, and compliance is being properly achieved. Objective is achieved. Now there is another principle which is what? COCO, critical criteria of control, sorry, criteria of control, COCO framework was developed by Canadian Institute of Chartered Accountant with objective of improving ogle or sorry with um, objective of improving or or objective of improving organizational, sorry, this is organizational performance and decision making. So in 1995, back when my brother born, guidance on control was produced and described as COCO framework. It includes 20 criteria for effective control in 4 areas. So what they can ask is mention the 4 areas अंडर कोको फ्रेमवर्क. कोको में कौन से 4 एरिया है? 4 एरिया. So it is more or less same, but you need to mug up purpose, commitment, monitoring and learning, capability. It's what competence. So PCM की capability बहुत ज़्यादा है. We also know. So you'll tend to realize this. And then the next framework is with respect to COBIT. COBIT. So it was created by Isaka. Again, these are all MCQ points. 34 high level process, covered 210 control objective. Again, characterized under 4 domain: planning, acquisition, delivery, and monitoring. So you can go through this. These are all what the frameworks. What does each framework tells everything. You can go through this. Just mark few points as important for me, which can be asked as a 4-mark question or even as an MCQ also. So few mark these few points. One is with respect to this answer. This they can ask 4 areas of an organization includes 20 criteria for effective control in 4 areas. So they can ask you 4 areas under COCO. Similarly, COBIT में this 34 high level process, 210 control objective created by Isaka. They can ask you which of the framework was created by Isaka. Then you should be able to tell that okay, COBIT was established or created by Isaka. And mark the objective. It guarantees the integrity of the information system. So that is important. What does COBIT has focus into? COBIT's focus is for this improving upon the integrity of the information system, automation. COBIT. What is the full form of COBIT? Control objectives for information and related technology. So it is more or less focused into technology. Just remember that COBIT objective, or even if you could learn the full form, control objectives for information and related technology. Now SEC, Sarbanes-Oxley Section 404. This is an act in US, which is more or less you can say SEBI Act, like just like we have here in India SEBI Act, SEBI LODR rules and regulations. So in US they have Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Their SEC has specified certain rules. So what is SEC? SEC is you can say equals to SEBI of India. So just like India has regulatory authorities for listed entities, similarly US has regulatory authorities for listed entities in US, which is called as SEC, Securities Exchange Commission. So Security Exchange Commission rules and the PCOB standard require 3 points. Okay, not this is not that much important. Okay, you can give it a reading. What is PCOB? Public Committee Accounts Oversight Board, something sort of like that. So you can Google it, PCAOB, and SEC rule requires all these points, and mark this point as important. Rules issued by SEC require companies' annual report to include an IC report of management which will contain these 3 points. So the homework is this last page. Again, please do the homework. So this I've already gone through, but again, you should be again willing to go through again. Try to Google it out. If you're not able to get it something, try to search, try asking me why is it there, what is the background, everything, anything. And then also go through these 2 questions. Okay? So go through these 2 questions. If you want to go through, you have till 15 minutes break as well. We'll meet at 10 and we'll be starting with 400 series, essay 400 series. We'll be starting with essay 400 series. You have 15 minutes. We have 15 minutes break. After 10, let's start. Okay?